Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Split Decision. You've got me and Para, and our very special guest, Lindsay Allen from the Las Vegas Aces and the Melbourne Boomers. Welcome to the Split Decision.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Before we get into it, obviously we have to shout out our sponsors, Cremlon. They've got new stuff coming out, and we're also in the works of something special for you guys. So make sure you guys stay tuned, and also make sure you're following the Instagram, the Twitter, the YouTube, and the Reddit that I haven't checked. The Reddit. Yeah. Anyway, I guess let's get straight into it. And I guess the first question from us is, do you remember the reason why you got into basketball?
Oh, yeah, I definitely do. The reason I started playing was because my older brother was playing. And so I have an older brother and an older sister, and they were involved in sports. And so obviously I wanted to do everything that they did. And so my brother was playing basketball, and I wanted to play. And then ever since then, I've loved it. And I've just loved competing and just continuing to get better at the sport, really.
Right. So like the basketball ran in your family basically.
Yeah, a little bit. My brother was playing, and then my older sister was also playing. But then we just sort of figured out what sport was best for us. Growing up, we played all types of sports: baseball, t-ball, soccer, softball. Yeah, just kind of everything. And then as we got older, we just sort of figured out what was best. And so me and my brother sort of stuck with basketball, and my sister went to volleyball a little bit. And then she went to college for it and all that stuff. But yeah, growing up, we were all just playing basketball and just playing all types of sports. Yeah.
Right. So what was that like that first memory like of playing basketball? Like what was like that first memory that sticks out in your head? You're like, oh man, I really do love basketball, you know?
I think first memory would have to be just sort of playing with like the neighborhood kids, I would say. Because we had a hoop in our driveway, and a bunch of our neighbors also had hoops in their driveways. And so we would just spend hours and hours after school just playing against each other and playing games. And then obviously just playing against my brother as well. And having to go against him was just pretty tough, but it was so much fun. And it's always just like a fond memory that I have.
No.
So you grew up in that like Maryland and Washington sort of area. What was it like growing up there and playing basketball there as well?
Oh, I think it was amazing because it was a very basketball centric sort of area. Um, and so we just had a bunch of really good basketball players that came out of that area, especially on the men's side. I mean, you guys know Kevin Durant, Michael
Oh, yeah,
Beasley,
Katie.
Quinn Cook, just like a bunch of really good, Victor Oladipo, just all those guys really grew up in that area. And so it was just really cool growing up watching the high school basketball games that they were involved in, and also the stuff on the women's side as well. And so it was just like a basketball lover's dream, really, to grow up in that area.
Right. So when you were playing as a kid in basketball, like when did you realize, maybe like I can take this to a professional level, or like you saw yourself stand out a bit more, like in terms of like the people that were around you or in your basketball team?
I don't know if there was ever a moment where I realized or I thought about being able to make it to the pros. I think that was always the goal, but you just kind of keep playing and just try to see how far you can take it, really. But I think in elementary school was really sort of when I started to focus, or later on in elementary school, when I started to focus more on basketball and realized that this is definitely my favorite sport out of all the sports that I played. And it took up so much time throughout sort of my day-to-day kind of yearly schedule. It's just a year-round sport, really, that I kind of realized that was something that I wanted to do, and just kind of see how far I could take it and how hard I can work, and just kind of go from there.
Growing up, like, do you remember like the idols that you had that you sort of looked up to and you wanted to model your game after as well?
Oh, yeah. I think one of the first ones that I had was Allen Iverson, I think.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, him playing with the 76ers was just absolutely insane in like the early 2000s. And so that was I was fairly young, maybe 5 or 6. And so that was just kind of the first guy that you really saw just playing with so much swag and just really
ball
just
out.
not caring at all what anyone thinks or what anyone's gonna say. And I think everyone kind of in our area just idolized Allen Iverson because I mean he just had so much swag, from the headband to like the arm sleeves. Everyone started wearing like arm sleeves made out of long socks. Everyone started wearing headbands with braids. I mean, it was just nuts. I'm sure if my mom let me get tattoos, I would have had tattoos as well that day. So, he was kind of the first guy. And then as I got older, it became, I really loved watching Carmelo Anthony play when he was with the Nuggets early in his career. And then as I got into like middle school, I think it became more about like the University of Maryland basketball team. So I watched a lot of Marissa Coleman, a lot of Chrissy Tolliver. I just loved watching them play and going to the basketball camps during the summer. And so that's probably one of the main kind of people that I idolized in my basketball career. Yeah.
Yeah, all I'm gonna say is he's a top 10 basketball player
my
of all time. There's so much disagreement on that. But other than basketball, like in general, did you have people that like you looked up to while you were growing up?
Yeah, because I'm the youngest out of 3 kids, I always looked up to my older siblings, and I don't think I really realized that growing up. But now that I'm older and that we're all older, I think I kind of realized that, I did look up to them, and I really looked for their guidance. And I really kind of, when I was younger, especially, I really followed them wherever they went. And I'm sure they hated it because my mom made them do it. But I mean, that's really who I looked up to. And then, as you get into your early teens or whatever, it becomes more about, you don't want to do anything that they do, and you just kind of want to make your own sort of identity. And so I kind of went through that phase as well, obviously. And then now that I'm older and now that we're kind of all grown up and adults and all that stuff, I really look up to them. I really enjoy hanging out with them and just sort of hanging out, really. It's just really been cool to kind of see how our lives have changed and shifted throughout growing up, and sort of how it's shaped our relationships as well.
It was a real like take your sister with you kind of vibe, wasn't it? With your parents.
Basically, yeah.
And you never I'm an older sibling. You never understand, you never realize the impact that you have on your younger siblings until you see them mimic your behavior. You're like, my younger. I'm like, how did you do that? I do that. Why are you doing that?
Yeah, exactly. It's so crazy.
David, bro, he's a legend.
Everything that they liked growing up, all the same kind of musicians, all the same basketball players, all the same athletes, just sort of whatever they were doing, I was all involved with. Even if I didn't even know what was going on, I was just kind of hanging out and just soaking everything in, basically. Yeah.
And then so you went to the University of Notre Dame. What was that experience like for you going there?
I think it was just very unique. And I think I definitely, when I first committed there and I first signed to play there, I didn't realize how much and how instrumental it would be to just my basketball career, but also just kind of my development and growing up as a person as well. And so, just a unique experience, just being able to combine the tradition of Notre Dame and everything that it stands for and everything that it means here in the United States, but also how good the women's basketball team is and has been for the past 10 years or so, really consistently, that it was just a really great experience for me. And it really shaped who I am as a basketball player, and being able to play under a Hall of Fame coach as well and play with some of the best players in the country was so much fun. And the 4 years flew by very quickly, but I will hold that memory with me for the rest of my life.
So once you became the captain of that team, what experience do you reckon you gained from becoming the captain in the 2016-17 season?
I think up to that point, you just sort of learned from the captains and leaders that came before you, and you just sort of realize how much kind of goes into it, especially at that age when we have so many other kind of obligations and responsibilities with school, and then family and all that stuff. And we're just trying to figure out ourselves as young adults as well. And so it's just like everyone's going through their own sort of thing. So it's just kind of about bringing everyone together and trying to figure out how best to lead that certain team as well. And I think I had great leaders throughout my early career. And so being a captain, it was tough because you're just the main one kind of either getting on people or encouraging them or just sort of trying to figure out how to make things work best. And you're really just in the thick of it. And you really don't have a lot of time to come up from fresh air at times, but it's also very rewarding. And I mean, I love being a part of a team like that. And yeah, it was just a great time.
So, you finished with the all-time assist record at Notre Dame and ACC history. What did it mean, like getting to hold that, like holding that record as well?
Put your name in the books.
Looking back on it, I think it means a lot. I think in that moment, I wasn't really thinking about, or when I first got there, I wasn't thinking about, okay, I really want to break this record, or I really want to do this or that. It was just kind of, I'm just going to work as hard as I can and put my head down and go to work and just sort of see what happens from there, really. But yeah, looking back on it now, I think it means a lot. I think it means more to my parents, really, because, you know, parents love that sort of thing. But yeah, I think it really speaks to the teammates that I had as well. I mean, we had some great scorers come through that program and some great teammates and just really unselfish players as well. And so it just speaks to the coach I played under and the program I played for.
So in that when you're playing at Notre Dame, you also finished with the most consecutive starts in history.
Oh yeah.
Like, is that like a big milestone for you? Like to see that, you know, you hold like 2 records at the school?
Yeah, I think that one, it might mean a bit more than the assist one, just because it speaks to the consistency that I had throughout my career there. But yeah, when people were talking about it my senior year or towards the end of my senior year, and they were just so surprised that I was able to make it through without any injuries or any sort of like illnesses or anything like that. I mean, when you're in the moment, you're just like, oh yeah, I never even considered why that would be a thing. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, wow, yeah, that really is surprising. But now that I'm kind of out of that environment and now that I'm playing professionally for the past 3 years or so, I really don't know how I made it through kind of that time with consecutive starts, because I feel like my body's slowly breaking down now at this point, honestly. But I guess it goes downhill from college, I guess. But nah.
Don't tell me that.
No, definitely better.
Oh, no.
No, I'm just joking. But yeah, yeah, that was special as well. And it was just cool to be able to share it with my family too.
You're just too locked in the zone to realize, you know,
yeah,
records or anything like that.
But that's how you want to be. You're like just in the moment. It's just like think about the next game, this game. You're not really thinking like longevity sort of thing. So then I guess
I'm sure. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just not saying. I guess you got everyone's basketball dream of getting drafted, getting their name called. What was that like? That feeling of going through that whole process of like that, like getting from the stating that you're gonna go into the draft and then being drafted as well.
I think it was a weird time, especially because it was my senior year, so my college career was over, and so I think it was maybe like a 2 or 3 week period between my last college game and the day I got drafted, and so I think after we lost my senior year, that last game, it was just sort of like, wow, I'm officially done with college basketball. Like, this has been a part of my life for the past 4 years, and now it's officially over. So it's just like kind of getting your humanity back, because during the season, I mean, it's really just about basketball, and you're just so concerned, especially during the NCAA tournament, you're just so concerned about basketball. And so it's like, okay, I don't even know how to be like a regular student anymore at one point, which is kind of bad to say in terms of student athletes and all that stuff. But yeah, it was just a weird time. And then it's like, okay, now I need to shift to where I would be playing professionally. And so I had to hire an agent and go through that process, which is fairly easy. And then talk to a few teams who could possibly draft me. And I had a good idea of where I would be drafted somewhat. And so it's just kind of waiting for your name to be called. And so that day I was hanging out with one of my teammates in college, and we were just sort of watching. And then I saw my name come up on the screen, and that was kind of it. And then I got a call from my future head coach, and we just kind of talked about where things would go from there in terms of training camp and all that stuff. But yeah, it was just it all happened so quickly from the last college game to being drafted and then training camp. It was just it was a good time.
It would have been like an amazing experience when they just call out your name. You know, it's like when you like listen to the draft night and you hear like with the first pick of the NBA draft, and then you just like hear the name and you just get excited. You get excited for the person, you know. Or like when I get excited when I hear my team. I get excited when I hear my team draft someone, even though I know it's going to happen.
You don't even know who it is.
Sitting there like, yes, we drafted
that
someone.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, I love that. Tingus fingers, if you know that reference. So when you're at Liberty, like you made the final cut when I had to reduce the roster down to size. What was that like? How was that entrance for you into like professional basketball? You know, like when you realize, oh man, you know, like they really have to do these kind of things. Some people have to like lose here for me to win.
Yeah, it was interesting, I think, because so I went through the whole training camp with New York, and then on the last day I was actually cut. And so after that, it was like the same thing of when I lost my last college game. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is now over. Classes were still going on at Notre Dame. And so I was just like, I guess I'm just kind of a student again until graduation, really. So I went back to college and just sort of spent some time there. And really just kind of enjoyed being a college student for a little bit. But then obviously I knew there was a chance that I would be brought back just because there was some overseas commitments that were still coming in and things like that. And so a couple weeks later I was back with Liberty, and we were off and running. And it was just kind of, I think training camp was just kind of the biggest sort of, I'm going to phrase this wrong, but like the slap in the face, because you're so used to a certain level of basketball in college. And so you get to training camp where you're playing against professional players who have been playing for a few years, 5 years, some 10 years. And so it's just like, they're so kind of ahead of you in that way, and how to approach training camp and how to approach the game of basketball. And so it's just kind of, I had to take that first week of training camp to really get used to professional basketball, and especially the style that we played in New York as well. It was it was physical, it was tough, the game was so much faster, so much quicker. So that took some getting used to. But I think once I came back that second time, I think I was more ready and I knew what to expect a lot more. And so I just kind of fit in seamlessly from there on out.
So it was a big jump, it was a big jump just going into the deep end of like the training camp, you know, like you weren't expecting what you got.
We started with like 2-a-days. I think we had 3 2-a-days in a row, and I was just exhausted. I was just like, this is professional basketball. I don't know.
All the others like breezing through it, you know?
Yeah, right. Everyone's doing fine. I'm like sore after every practice. It's like, oh, this is rough.
Just sitting in the ice bath afterwards.
Yeah, seriously.
When you think about it, though, it's like surprising how many people actually make it. It's like that jump where you go from being like the best in your sort of like college, and then you go to the NBA and you're like, you're not that guy anymore or that person.
Yeah.
You're not like that number one option. You're going to like fourth or fifth or even just riding the bench. So the amount of rookies actually it's actually surprising that the amount of people succeed that actually like succeed. It's like,
yeah, that's why you got to like when you see players, you know, like your Trey Youngs and Ja Morants and you know everyone, you got to appreciate it, because you don't understand like what they've gone through to get where they are, because you know they were just a little fish in a big pond. You know,
exactly.
So much tougher. Yeah, I was talking to Sophie Cunningham about this with the Boomers this past season. We were talking about how in college you're just sort of at the top of your game and you're one of the top players in the country, and then as soon as you get drafted, it's like that, and you're back to the bottom again. You have to figure out like how to kind of fit in with the team and just figure out whatever the team needs in that moment. And sometimes it's you coming off the bench and giving a couple minutes where you just try not to make any mistakes at all, basically, and just kind of hold the tide. Or maybe it's you coming in and just spotting up and being a shooter, or coming in for defense, just whatever. You really have to be ready at a moment's notice and just sort of do the best you can for your team.
Play your role kind of thing, you know?
Yeah,
definitely.
That's what I've like from everyone we've talked to. That's what I've learned. Like role players are heavily slept on. Like every team needs role players.
I agree.
Like Steve Kerr, I'd rather be Steve Kerr.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like It's just chilling. You just do your role and you're happy. Like
Wait,
you
you'd
know
rather
what you
be
gotta
Steve
do.
Kerr over who? You'd rather be Steve Kerr over who?
I'm not naming names. I'm just saying. Like Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's got a good job. Steve Kerr.
I thought you were about to say like MJ or something, and I was like, bro,
No,
what are you on about? What are you on about?
It's different. I don't know.
But Steve Kerr, like,
It's
he just knew his role. He practiced his role, and he did his role. He did his role to the best of his ability, and he was ready.
Yeah.
Like, and that's you just got to do that. You just got to know your role.
Yeah, and he was saying he was only getting like 5 shots a game, and that's all he got. So he had to make the most of those shots. And if he missed, then it's like, maybe I don't get those same shots next game or the rest of the season. It's just kind of, just never knowing how many minutes you're going to get, really.
Yeah, exactly.
But those 5 shots were 5 important shots. That's the
yeah, true.
It saved MJ's career.
Oh,
that shot,
yeah, right.
That one shot. That one shot.
Blasphemy.
Saves his legacy. You're right.
LeBron's my king. LeBron is my king.
Oh my God,
We'll talk about that later, mate. We'll talk about that later.
I cannot believe this. Wow.
No, we'll talk about this later on. We'll get into this debate later.
So, what was your first WNBA game like?
My first WNBA game, well, we had like preseason games and all that stuff, and that was just different, I think. And I think preseason's obviously less pressure as well, and so it's just kind of being the first time to really put on that uniform and play in it, and then kind of having a bit of nerves, but also realizing that, we're all just playing the game of basketball, and it's also preseason. So it's like, you just kind of have to do the best you can and really live with the results as well. But we don't have a ton of memories from my first WNBA game now.
Really? So when what's it like getting to play for like an NBA legend like Bill Laimbeer,
Oh,
playing under him,
Bill.
just getting the experience from
him? It's interesting, to say the least, I think, because obviously you hear about Bill during his career, and you've seen the Bad Boys documentary that they did with ESPN, and so you're like, oh, okay, this is the Bill Laimbeer that I'm going to be playing for. And so you talk to him on the phone, and he just sounds like he looks, kind of thing, and then you meet him in person, and he's just like huge. Like, he's so tall. He's just like a huge human being, and you're like, holy crap. But then you get to play for him, and you realize that he's very much a player's coach, because he played in the NBA as well. And so he knows what it's like being in our shoes, and he knows just the ins and outs of kind of everything that we have to deal with on top of basketball as well. And so he's never going to run us into the ground or anything like that. We don't have like 3-hour practices or anything crazy. It's just kind of getting in the gym, focusing on the tasks that we have to do for however long we're in there for, maybe an hour and a half, and then kind of getting out, really. But he's really big on just sort of mental stuff. And so sometimes, during the season, it just kind of gets long and hard and all that stuff. Bodies get sore, all that stuff. And so you might not always feel your best physically, but if you bring it mentally, your body just sort of follows, kind of thing. And so he's really big on that stuff. But yeah, he's a very loyal guy. And I've really enjoyed kind of learning from him and just seeing how he incorporates what he learned during his career and kind of putting that into our team.
Right.
One thing I had to ask, like, what was the difference you noticed from college and NBA practices? Like, any big resounding differences?
Not really, no, I don't think so. Everyone sort of does the same stuff and runs the same plays, but just like different variations. And so, yeah, it's just kind of here in the WNBA with Bill, we literally do the same drills every practice, really. Like, it's literally just the same stuff over and over and over again. It was that way in college as well. And so a lot of repetitions, but it's just about focusing and kind of just trying to be your best and trying to give your team the best shot to be better every single day. And so we come in, we do the same stuff, but we know we have to bring it every day because your teammate expects you to, really.
Did it get like monotonous in like boring after like just keep on repeating the same drills every single day, going through the same motions? Or was it like, yeah, I'm going to go to training, I'm just going to like do my best, try and improve?
I think it's a little bit of both, because I think before and after practices are really when you can improvise and just sort of work on your game with the coaches or anything like that. And then when you get to practice, it's going to be the same stuff over and over and over again. But that's what you have to do to be really good at this level. And so we're willing to sort of sacrifice doing the same drills because we know they have a purpose in the system that we play in with Bill, and we know they're going to make us a better team. And we know we wouldn't be doing these drills if they were just going to be useless. And so they're pretty much tried and tested by Bill over his years coaching in the WNBA. And so it's just sort of, we just have to get through it. We get to give our best, and we just have to get better today, basically.
Yeah, it's like there's this quote, I can't remember, I think it's Kobe that says it. He's like, don't practice until you make it, practice until you can't fail. And I was just like, yeah. I guess that's how it is, He
that's
was,
really all it is. Yeah.
You don't want to fail it like when it comes to game time.
Yeah. Exactly.
So like I think it was in the 17-18 season, you were waived by the New York Liberty, but then like a couple of days later after that, you were picked up by the LA Vegas Aces. What was it like feeling of being signed like just after being dropped? Like, was it?
Oh, it was just crazy. So I got cut from New York the last day of training camp again, kind of a little bit of deja vu. So I was like, oh crap. But then when I was talking to the GM with New York, obviously Bill was there as a coach the season before. And so the GM and Bill were pretty close. And so he just had an idea that I wouldn't be kind of sitting on my butt for too long. And he kind of guessed that Bill would give me a call. And so I'm packing up all my stuff from the practice facility and saying bye to people, all that stuff. And I'm in my car driving back to where I was staying in New York. And maybe like 10 minutes after I'd spoken to the GM, something like that, Bill gives me a call actually. And I'm like, oh, the GM was right. Dan was right. So I'm talking to Bill, and he's like, well, we're going to pick you up off of the waiver wire, whatever they call it. And he's like, do you want to play for the Aces? And I'm like, well, I could really use a job. And I was like, nah, just joking. But yeah, I was like, of course I would like to play for the Aces. And they were waiting for a couple players to come back from injury and from like overseas commitments and stuff as well. And so, I said yes to Bill, and then I spoke to my agent about it. And then the next day I was on my way to Connecticut to play in my first game with the Aces.
Damn, it must be like a roller coaster of emotions going through that. Like,
it was just nuts. It's like, I just got waved. This sucks. So that
10 minutes later,
yes. It's like, oh, okay. But then it was still like, I still have to pack up all my stuff in my apartment again. So it's like, either way. But yeah, I was like, well, at least I still have a job, so this is good.
It's like, I still got a job. I still have to pick up this whole apartment.
Yeah.
That would be such a drainer. Nothing worse than moving just after getting waived.
Yeah, right.
So then, in your first season with the Aces, you got your first career start and also had career highs in points, rebounds, and assists, and you've been able to reach another level while playing with them. What's that like? How's that been for you?
I think it was a cool experience because, as saying, coming in as a rookie, it's just like you don't know what to expect, and you really just get sort of punched in the face kind of with just the level of play in the WNBA. And so after playing overseas that winter and then coming back, I had a lot more confidence and I knew what to expect in my second year. And so it's just kind of going out there and just proving it. And I knew Bill had a lot of trust in me. And so I really just had to figure out my role and just play my role to the best I could, because I knew there would be other point guards coming in throughout the season. And so I just kind of had to give the team the best I could and just kind of live with those results. But yeah, I think I learned a lot my second year in the league, and how to play the game and how to fit within a team, and just how to be a winner, because that organization wasn't very good leading up to that point, the San Antonio Stars. And so we just kind of had to figure out how to win as a team and how to grind through these games and how to finish games together. And I think that made us a better team.
So in the 2019 season, you were injured, unfortunately. Like, how was that journey, like trying to rehabilitate yourself and like get back to where you were, like pre-injury?
I think that was tough because I never dealt with the injury ever, like really.
Right.
The usual like sprained ankles, jammed fingers, little things like that,
Yeah.
but nothing that would keep me out of the game for weeks and especially not months. And so that was tough, just sort of wrapping my head around that. But like once you sort of get into the flow, or once you kind of wrap your head around, the surgery and the rehab and what you'll have to do, it's really just kind of what we talked about with practice every day. You just sort of go into rehab every day, do what you have to do, kind of stay in that moment, and just sort of take it really day by day. Because if you try to get too far ahead, or you try to think about the past or things you could have done to prevent the injury, you're just going to be on this endless sort of loop of a little bit of misery, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think for me, it was important for me to just stay in the moment with rehab and just focus on that and take it from there. I think it was really tough being on crutches. It was just like awful. I wouldn't recommend it at all.
Arms, everything.
Yeah.
That's your arms.
Crutches are awful. And then kind
Get
of
mad leg strength though.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And then like after getting off crutches, then you're like, I don't even know if I know how to walk anymore because you haven't walked on two legs in forever. So we're just like, I was walking so slow and I was just like, this feels so incredibly weird, just being able to walk again. So that was interesting. But then once I got into the groove of rehab and all that stuff, it was really fine. And I think once I got back into like basketball activities as well, it was great. And then, it took me a while to get like my feel back for the game with like during games and stuff and kind of allowing the game to slow down a little bit, if that makes sense. But in terms of just like the skill work, that was probably the easier part of rehab because it's just repetition like we talked about. And so it's just kind of getting in the gym every single day and just kind of working on your game. And, if you do that, like you'll have pretty good results from there. But yeah, that was an interesting time. Just dealing with that injury, but a completely different experience, but I'm grateful I've had it and I think I'm better for it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
I was going to say something, I forgot. I forgot what I was going to say.
So I think you joined the Melbourne Boomers 2 seasons ago now. What was that decision behind coming to move to Melbourne and playing for the Boomers as well?
So my agent reached out to me when I was playing in Russia, like the kind of off season after my rookie year in the WNBA. And she kind of reached out about the Boomers being interested. And I heard a little bit about the WNBA in Australia and about the league. And I heard people really love Australia and they really like the league as well. And I knew I wanted to play in Australia at some point in my career. I just didn't know it would be that soon. But I accepted kind of their offer and we just sort of went from there. And then kind of 2 seasons with them later, here I am. And it was just such a great time. And I built so many kind of lasting friendships and relationships with so many people over there. It was just an amazing experience. And I'm glad my life has sort of worked out that way where I was able to play in Australia and just experience a completely different world from the United States and especially from Russia where I was my first off season. And so really no regrets.
Was it hard adjusting to the Australian accent?
A little bit, yeah. It honestly was a little bit, yeah. I think it was kind of hard, but I think after a while you just sort of the slang was just, you guys shorten every single word. So I'm just like, how does that even?
We just add an O to everything.
How does it even work out? I'm just like, I don't even know how that makes sense, but it makes complete sense now that I actually get it. But I think it was just
makes complete sense now that I get it.
It was the exact same for me when I moved. I couldn't get anything they were saying, and I was just like, I don't get that.
The biggest difference people have is like hearing us say like mate after everything. Like every time I talk to someone, they're like, yeah, mate, here, mate. They just hate hearing it.
Yeah, that's
That
true.
used to frustrate me. I was just like, why? Like, you don't need to add it at the end of every sentence. But I'm used to it now. So
the best is the yeah, nah. Like when you say yeah, but nah
I love
afterwards.
saying
But
yeah,
you mean yeah, but you mean
yeah.
it's like yeah, nah. Yeah, nah.
Or nah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like my famous saying. Yeah, nah, for sure.
It's the best thing.
It just makes so much sense. Like, yeah.
It does make sense, exactly. It's the best thing you've taken.
Complete sense.
It must have been the best thing you've taken from here, 100%. This the
Oh,
slang.
definitely. Yeah.
Taking it home. You get home to mum. It's just like, oh yeah, went down to the servo. She's like, where?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So when I first got home after this season, I was going out to breakfast with my sister, and so we were like getting ready, getting dressed to go, or whatever. And I was like, all right, yeah, Brecky might shout. And she was like, what? It's like, I was
Just
like,
smashed everyone toast.
We're going to breakfast. I'm paying. I'm treating you. It's like, oh yeah, sounds great. Once she heard that, like, oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Like,
oh my God.
But yeah, I'm just like, I'm completely sorry. I didn't even. Yeah.
It's,
but now she knows a little bit of slang as well. So
that
is
great. Amazing. That is.
We don't even speak English. That's the best. We don't speak English.
Yeah, really.
So what do you speak? Oh yeah, Australian.
So, with both your seasons with the Boomers, you reached the WNBA semifinals. When you look back, how do you sort of view that whole experience and that postseason run?
I think it was a lot of fun, and I think it was just kind of an interesting sort of situation with the series sort of thing, because I had never really been in a series up to that point. And so obviously you watch the NBA and watch the playoffs in their series and all that stuff, and you're like, oh, like it seems so simple, or it just seems like, you know, that you're just watching it, it seems really casual, but then you're actually in it, you're like, oh, so this is what a series is like. And ours was only a 3-game series, and you're just like, you know, okay, we have to play them at home or something like that, and then we have to play them there, and then we have to come back here, and it's just, and then you play them like 3 times throughout the season, and so you basically know everything about them, and you know exactly what they're going to do, and so it's really just about going out there and doing it. And you can't really prepare anymore. You just kind of have to let the training take over, and the confidence that you have in your team and in yourself, really. But yeah, I think obviously this past season's playoffs were a lot better for us than the season before, just because we got swept that season. But yeah, I think this past season was just those playoffs were such a grind with Canberra, every single game, and just kind of, you know, their team very, very well, but they're still incredibly tough to guard. And so you're just kind of making adjustments on the fly and figuring out how to best exploit mismatches that you might see during the game. But I really enjoyed that series with them, and obviously I wish we would have won and gone on to the grand final. But I think as a team, we took a lot away from that series, and it could only help us as basketball players from there.
Right. I forgot what I was gonna say. Anyway, I'll move on. But you said you played in Russia, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was it like playing in a country like Russia? You know, like where it's just cold and stuff. You got to adjust to that. You know, what was that experience like?
I think it was interesting, just because, and I was very much just sort of in a bubble, really. I mean, I would wake up, we would have morning practice, and then I would come back, have lunch, whatever, take a nap, and then go back and have evening practice, and just sort of over and over and over again. And then we'd have game days and all that stuff, but it was very much a bubble. But it was just different because of the language barrier as well. And so my coach hardly spoke any English, just a couple like basketball terms and all that stuff. But we had a general manager who was fluent in English, and a couple of players knew English as well. And so it was really just sort of learning on the fly and learning a couple of Russian terms for basketball, just to be able to use and be able to communicate with your teammates sometimes. And I had another American teammate as well. And so we were just kind of together in this sort of trying to figure out what exactly they wanted from us at times. Yeah, so it was just like, what did they say, or what did he mean, or just sort of what are we supposed to do, or where are we supposed to be, or when's lunch or dinner, or just sort of just like we just have no idea half the time. But yeah, I think it was great, and I think Russia is definitely one of the tougher leagues to play in and one of the tougher places to live as a professional basketball player. And so I'm glad that I was able to do that my rookie year and just sort of dive into the deep end basically, and throw myself into it, and have a pretty good season there. Yeah.
Right. Pre-game shots or vodka.
Nah, never that.
They're crazy. I love them. They're amazing. So we've got some questions from our followers. You know, they love chiming in on these podcasts. They love the interaction. One of our first questions was, "Who is your NBA GOAT?"
Oh, of course, Michael Jordan. I mean, this is just
facts.
Yeah,
facts.
Yeah, it's obviously Michael
Facts.
Jordan. I mean, especially it was Michael Jordan before this documentary came out, but especially now after, it's forever Michael Jordan. And I don't think there's anything LeBron could do in his career that I think could eclipse the greatness of Michael Jordan. And I think I'm really tired of hearing the comparisons or hearing people talk about MJ versus LeBron, because I mean, they're both such great players, and it's just kind of been overkill recently, especially with this documentary out of every week. It's like, okay, who's better, who's greater, who had better swag, or who had the better jump shot, or who passed better. I'm like, this is just so tiring at this point.
We're in a group chat.
Get tired of this?
We're in a group chat. We're in a group chat. There's like 6 of us, and there's like 2 kids that are obsessed with LeBron, and the other 4 are just obsessed with Michael Jordan. And I'm sitting there in the middle, just like, yeah, go Kevin Durant, you know? Because I'm an Oklahoma fan, and I still can't get over the fact that he left.
Oklahoma.
To be fair, I do the wind-up George. I only do it to wind up George. After every episode, I'd be like, I'll say some obscure thing Jordan's in the documentary. I'm like, oh, he dropped 30 on this guy. Is LeBron your go? I only say that because I love pissing George off.
It really is fun to tease people about it, yeah.
We got this one kid that he's just obsessed with LeBron. Like he followed him everywhere. Like Cavs to Miami.
How are you gonna do George like Cavs,
that? To Lakers. Hey, what do you mean? He was originally a Toronto fan, and then he's like, yeah, LeBron.
Toronto? Oh my god.
Yeah, he was a Toronto fan before anything, and then he went to just LeBron. He's like, yeah, I love LeBron. But
I mean, he jumped back in the finals when Toronto were about. George was like, "Hey, I'm a Toronto fan." During the finals.
Right. He's like, "Yeah, Kawhi is my new goat."
Oh man,
his hands are actually huge. I was looking at it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Hilarious.
So then,
also, wait, I got a quick question. When you were here, right? Did you go to an AFL game by any chance?
I did. I went to one in 2018. That was Collingwood against Richmond, I think. Maybe it was.
Jeez,
I always get confused how you guys kind of talk about like the semifinals or like the quarterfinals or like the finals. Yeah. It's all weird, but so I don't really know like what it's called. Maybe premieres. I don't know what premiership. I think it was, or like
the preliminary. Oh, you went to that game.
Oh yeah, I think
That's crazy.
Preliminary finals. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, so I went to that game, and that was just absolutely nuts. It was just such a good time, and just, you know, I watch like American football here, and I see like how hard they hit each other with pads on, and then I'm watching AFL, and I'm seeing these guys like really lay each other out with no kind of pads, and I'm just like, I really like flinch every time someone gets hit. It's just like so intense, but yeah, it's such a cool game to be able to kind of learn and go from there, and go Tigers, yeah.
Yeah, go Tigers. I can't believe, damn it, she goes for the Tigers. Yeah. Wait, no, but yeah, exactly. I can't believe you went to that game. That game was so good. That was like one of the best games we've had in the last like 2 years. You know, it was so intense. Big Mason Cox was tearing it up.
Yeah, when they were cheering USA, I was also cheering USA in the crowd.
Yeah. You were sitting there just, let's go USA, and then you saw USA. And then Richmond were winning. It was a good day at the office.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's a very different sport. A lot of people don't understand it. You know, when they come here, like, what are we talking about? You know, 6 points.
Yeah, it's so weird to get used to. I was like, oh, okay.
It's really center point of Melbourne as well, because it's like one of the biggest sports we have here at the MCG. So it's good fun. Anyway, we're getting off topic. We're talking about
Right. Talking about footy now. So.
And then also, who's your WNBA sort of GOAT thing?
Oh, I'm going to say Diana Taurasi, I think.
Yeah.
Just kind of her resume speaks for itself, really. And then she just is such a tough player. Like every time I watch her play, I'm like, how does she make that shot, or how does she make that move, or how did she see that pass? I'm just like so amazed how she just continually just shoots in people's faces, a hand right in her face, and just makes it. And it's just like, yeah, she's definitely a WNBA GOAT to me.
So I forgot my question. I'm having like the biggest brain fade right now. Sorry. Do you still get like nervous about games like beforehand when you're entering a game? You're like, oh man, we're about to go out there. I'm gonna have to perform. You still get nervous about that?
Yeah.
I have to play.
I have to play.
Like I actually have to play now. I can't just practice every day. Yeah. Yeah, I still get nervous for a couple games, I think. So my first game back after my rehab and my injury, during this past season's preseason, I was surprised at how nervous I was for that moment. Because, leading up to it, I was fine. I was like, yeah, just another game. I'm going to be playing this preseason. I'm only going to play like 15 minutes, blah, blah, blah. It should be okay. And then I'm driving to SBC for the game, and I am just getting more and more nervous. And I'm like, holy crap, this is such a weird feeling, because I never get like that nervous for games, and especially a preseason game at that. And so I think that one was just sort of a different kind of experience. And then once I was on the court, it was fine, obviously. But yeah, that game. And then probably for game one of the semifinals against Canberra, I was a little bit nervous just because of the hype of the playoffs and the finals and all that stuff. And then playing in Canberra, whose crowd is so tough. And then kind of knowing that if we could get this game one, then we have a pretty good chance of winning the series, because we'd be able to go back home to SBC and then have our crowd in front of us and all that stuff. And so, yeah, there was just so much hype around that moment. I was a little bit nervous, but as soon as the game starts, it's fine. But yeah, those are probably two of the times I was the most nervous for games. Yeah.
All right.
Do you have any like specific pregame, like any superstitions, like wearing your headband a certain way or wearing like a wristband or something like that?
No, not at this point in my career. I think I have sort of like a routine for pregame stuff where I go out and shoot and all that stuff, and then come back and get some treatment from the physio. But in terms of just like superstitious stuff, no, not as a professional, because this schedule changes so much sometimes, and I'm playing in different countries for different teams so often that I'm just like, you know what, this is just going to have to go out the window anyways at some point. But in college, I was pretty superstitious, I would say, because we had a very set schedule and it was hard to get away from that. And so once you have a set schedule, then you get these routines around that schedule, and it's just like, before you know it, you have so many superstitions that I'm just like, I can't even keep track of what is going on at this point. Like, I'm in way too deep at this point. But yeah, not at this point now.
So this one is from Joan Ewan. He says, what are you doing when you're not hooping? Like, what's your hobby?
What's my hobby? When I'm not hooping, mostly it's just sort of hanging out with friends, or, watching some footy. Nah. Let's see. I like to read, so I read a bunch. Yeah, really just sort of talking with friends and family, hanging out with my teammates. Sleeping is a hobby to me, honestly, because I need my sleep, and it's something that I'm very serious about. But yeah, that's mostly it. Watching movies, watching TV shows on Hulu or Netflix, something like that. But yeah, really just taking it easy and trying to take care of my body as much as possible.
Right.
And then this one's from Matt Warrendal, and he says, what's your most memorable in-game moment?
Most memorable in-game moment? Oh, that's such a tough question. Good
question, Matt.
Hey,
yeah,
Matt.
really good question. Good job, Matt. I think for me, it might have been going back to college when I broke the assist record. We were playing in the ACC tournament, the first game, the quarterfinals, I think it was. And so I don't know how many assists I needed that game in order to break the record, but like our school band was keeping track. They had like a tally that they were holding up every time I get an assist. And then just breaking that record and then having my parents there with me and my family there with me was special because at one point in college, my mom was texting me about the record and really like trying to make sure that I get it and that I know that how far I'm away from it. Like, all right, no pressure, Mom. Like, thanks.
15 assists. You need 15 assists.
Yeah, no, it was like maybe early February, late January, and she just texted me saying, "You need to average 7 assists from here on out in order to break the record."
Thanks, Mom. Number one fan.
To know that you could have just kept that to yourself, honestly. But yeah, like I mean, it meant a ton to them, and then being able to break it when they're there as well, and with my teammates, and getting the win, and just the whole atmosphere was really cool.
All right. So this is our last question that we have here. Do you have any advice for young Australians or young Americans that want to go pro in like their future basketball?
Yeah, I think when you're younger, it's just important to whatever you do, it's just love what you do. And that's just a ton of motivation for you to continue doing it. You don't want to do something that you're being forced to do, or you feel like your parents are making you do it, or your friends that you're hanging out with are making you do it. You really want to find something that you love and just sort of stick with it from there and just kind of see where it takes you. And then also just having, when you're younger, just really taking time to just play outside with your friends or something like that. And kind of get away from the structured play of games and practices and all that stuff. And those are some of my my fondest memories, was really just playing outside with my brother on our outdoor hoop and just kind of playing and figuring things out and trying new moves that we saw on TV and, lowering the court and dunking on it because we weren't tall enough, still not tall enough where you can jump high enough to dunk. So, yeah, just really having fun and just kind of improvising and, yeah, just going from there. And so really, yeah, love what you do and have fun with it and have like a structure, just sort of play around time and realizing that everything doesn't have to be so serious all the time. And even at this level, like we have so much fun during practice at times, and Guy Malloy doesn't like that as much, but I mean, we were a fun team and so we like to have fun, but realizing when you need to be serious and when you need to have fun is important kind of distinction to have.
I know, look at Kawhi Leonard. He's just a fun guy,
Fun guy.
Yeah. On and off the court. I'm
guy.
a fun guy here.
Definitely.
Anyway, thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining us on the podcast today.
It's such a pleasure to have you.
Yeah. Best one by far for me. I really enjoyed that.
100%. It's such a laugh.
Thanks
such
for having
a laugh.
me, guys.
And
No
guys,
problem.
make sure you're liking, commenting, subscribing, share the podcast around. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. It does help us out.
For sure.
I always forget to say that, but 5 stars on Apple. And make sure you check out the Reddit. So then I have a reason to check out that. Anyway,
see you later.
Thank you guys so much, and peace.
Peace.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Fuck you, big boy with that big broom. Big boy, how I come through. Big boy with that brand new, cause I'm killing it.